Okay, so our agenda for this morning's session, we will have a look at the aims and objectives of the session and look at the Thriving at Work inclusive workplace process. It's actually pretty straightforward, so that will be a big relief to everybody, I'm sure. We're going to do a little bit of exploration and training around the forms and templates that we've got. So we have a full template pack in place for every aspect of the inclusive workplaces, and it is pretty much kind of, we're happy with it. We think that there's everything in there that needs to be. From a compliance perspective, it absolutely has everything it needs, but we always want to give you guys opportunities to feed in if you feel like there's anything that's missing or anything that could be worded, particularly if it could be worded in a more inclusive way, or anything like that. So it'll be a mixture of us doing a little bit of training and explaining things, and also getting your feedback. There'll then be some opportunities for question and answers if anything is not clear, and we will finish off the session by looking at the next steps to be able to take the project forward. In the middle of that, we don't have that in there, but there will be a break because I hate 2-hour meetings that don't have a break in them. So about halfway through, we'll have a comfort break. So the aims and objectives for this session to train you guys on the processes and templates for delivering inclusive workplace support, for you to have everything that you need to engage, deliver and complete projects with SMEs. That seems like a bit of a weird language. That's the funding language. The targets we have on this one is SMEs completing projects, and for you to have an opportunity to share your plans and ideas with everybody else, because we're really keen that this does feel like a partnership. Obviously, generally speaking, we'll be mainly working with different organisations, but actually delivering the same activities and wanting to give the same value. So any ways that we're able to inspire each other and share ideas, I think are always good. Okay, cool. So the process is pretty straightforward, as I said. We will be sharing these slides. We will also be sending out a couple of pages, which is just a kind of guidance document that has the process outlined really clearly, and anything that's really important that particularly Emma says as she's going through the templates will be in there. So you don't need to worry about making tons of notes unless that's the way that you learn and you want to be able to make notes, then please feel free to do that. So looking at the inclusive workplace process, this is the only strand that we have that is contributing towards our SME targets. So as you guys who were on the call last week know, the webinars are about engaging with people to be able to hopefully funnel people in to be able to do this, as well as the activities that we'll be doing ourselves. But this is the whole element of the programme that's around supporting small, medium enterprises, SMEs, and being able to affect change within organisations, which is what we're all about. So the process will be that from the point of engagement that you have with the SMEs that you're going to support, there is entry paperwork, and that includes eligibility stuff, which Emma's going to talk through. It includes a diagnostic, which we'll spend a little bit of time looking through and making sure that we've got that exactly right. And just very, very simply at the beginning, following that diagnostic, when everybody's sort of filled that in, has a really good idea of where their strengths and weaknesses are, it will be about identifying 3 goals or priority areas for the Thriving at Work support that you guys will then go on to provide. There is a slight issue of state aid, but we have made this as absolutely straightforward as we possibly can. So there's a small declaration about state aid that's integrated into that first bit. And then we have a kind of template letter that you guys will need to adapt to make it relevant, and provide that to the organisation. There is a tick box for them to tick it to say that they have had the letter from you, and this is just part of what we need to do to basically meet that requirement from ESF. I don't think I think it is going to be very much a paper exercise. So we don't need to go into the absolute nuts and bolts of everything to do with state aid, but essentially there is a limit of the amount of aid that businesses are allowed to receive. The vast majority of businesses that any of us will work with will not have received any. So the declaration will most likely be saying that they haven't received anything, but we need to give them a letter so that they know that this project is a kind of state aid, and it's valued at £1,000. So I think it's something, Emma, you'll come in with the right number here. Is it like 80 million or something? What's the, it's a really, really big amount that people...
200,000 euros, I think.
What was that, Em?
Is it 200,000 euros across 3 fiscal years?
Yes. So most people will have had nothing, and then this project will be £1,000 for them to declare if they ever have state aid in the future. Obviously, having left Europe, it's not going to be a particularly big issue moving forward. The next part of the process then is for you guys to upload your entry paperwork to us. So that's through the Quorum portal. And I think most organisations on this call will be used to working with Quorum, but it's essentially a secure data transfer portal that we have so that you can send information to us, we can get information back to you that is confidential and often too big to be able to send by emails and things like that. So the next stage of the process is to deliver the project, actually. And as part of the delivery of that project, you'll be completing a mentoring support log. And that gives, as we've put there, a record of the contact and support that is being provided and being received. And we've kept this, again, this is pretty concise, the information to include in there. And then the final aspect when the program's been delivered is to complete the inclusive workplace diagnostic and the exit paperwork. And again, that's sort of the next stage of this session. We'll be going through each of those and looking at what they mean. And then the final part is that de minimis letter at the end. So at the beginning, you're letting people know if you have this project, it's going to count as de minimis, and you just need to make sure you haven't already had £200,000 worth of support. And then at the end, just a letter to confirm you've now had the support and it has this equivalent value in terms of de minimis. We have made it a standard £1,000 value for all organisations, which is based on the sort of unit price that we'd looked at for the support. A couple of other bits that are pertinent to the process that Emma will probably sort of touch on as we get to the relevant sections in the paperwork is really just about, I know a number of partners have sort of asked questions to say, okay, but what is the support and how much support and what does that need to look like? As much as possible, we want to give you guys as much freedom and agency to give the support that organisations need. But the way that we've structured this is that the diagnostic will give you a lot of really rich information about where organisations are at, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and you'll work with the business owners or the managers that you're working with to identify those goals. We would expect that there would be at least 6 lots of contact that would happen over the period of you delivering the support, but that doesn't all have to be meetings. It definitely doesn't all have to be in person. Some of that could be about emails, can be about phone calls, could be about other things. So there's opportunities in the paperwork for you to record all of that Emma will talk through, but just so that you have a bit of an idea of what that would look like. And it is really mentoring support for the employers. So where organisations have identified that they're not particularly good at certain kinds of practice, or they really want to be able to improve, or they want to be able to feel confident to sign up to a pledge, of giving them that support to be able to do that, and sharing different resources and different things that you might have available for that too. I think that is everything now on the process, unless you are aware of anything that I have missed.
No, I think you've covered everything, Sam. I'm just going to stop sharing the presentation and I'm going to go through the sort of the paperwork with you. Like we have done with the one-to-one support, we have created a handbook. So obviously everything, it's going to just take its sweet merry time while it gets itself together. Everything is in one place. What we can do, obviously, is split it back out so you can have the different sections available to you to use. It's all logoed up and branded, which obviously is a nice big tick for like the ESF compliance. So like Sam had sort of said, it starts with entry paperwork. So this is where we capture information about the organisation. And as part of ESF sort of compliance, we have to confirm that each organisation we engage with is an SME. This has been taken directly out of some ESF guidance that I found online. And again, it's like Sam had said, it's a bit of a tick box exercise, really. We don't need to collect evidence of this. It's just confirmation that the organisation does fall into that SME category. So fewer than 250 employees, annual turnover less than 50 million euros. We have to leave it as euros because obviously it's European funded. I would suggest nobody's going to be anywhere near that, but if you're concerned, then we need to look at the exchange rate to work out what the money is. And then sort of an annual balance sheet of less than 43 million. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, but they just need to confirm that yes they are an SME. Name and titles of the principal directors. I'm not 100% sure why this needs to be included, but it was in the form that I found online, so I have popped it in there just for safekeeping and for good measure. And then as part of our eligibility, the organisation must be based in one of our 9 districts so that we are, giving support to the districts that we've been contracted to. Does anybody have any questions about the first bit? You'll be pleased to know it's nearly all tick boxes. There's not a lot of writing for anybody, which I know will make some people happy.
Just one point of clarification on the district. It doesn't have to be the head office. There just has to be a physical base in one of these areas. So if I know particularly in East Riding, often you might have organisations where they've got a head office in Hull, but they've got delivery that takes place in East Riding with maybe another office there. As long as there is an office of the organisation in one of these delivery areas, then that's okay.
Just to say as well, Emma, we talked about the information from the principal directors, and if the company is struggling to get the information, or if we're kind of wanting to support a little bit, we can get the information off the company's house, can't we? So all that information will be on company's house.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes it's good to check things on company's house as well. I think there's a tick box somewhere to say that we've checked and confirmed, isn't there? So you can get that information off there.
Yeah, so one of the actions that came out of our Project Inception visit back in March was that any sort of engagement that we do with organisations, we must check Companies House or the Charity Commission to make sure they are who they say you are. So like Suzanne had said, information about the principal directors can all be found and collected on there if employers are pushed for time or they don't have it to hand, that sort of thing. So there's a nice way around it, I suppose, if getting some of the information is a little bit tricky. Section 3 is about their workforce.
Sorry, Emma, before you move on, can I just ask about that? Because not all companies we work with are going to be registered with Companies House.
Or it can be the Charity Commission.
Or the Charity Commission. So I'm just thinking about it's like small businesses in the area, they wouldn't be registered with Companies House or the Charity Commission.
We would have to have a look into what we would be able to use for that. Because I'm just trying to think, there would be some kind of registration for if it's a company that's employing people. Am I right in thinking that? Or is it possible to have a company that employs people that is not registered with either of those bodies?
Yeah, oh, definitely. So if you think of any, like I'm thinking of all the sort of small shops or beauticians, or they wouldn't be with Companies House. They will be registered with the Inland Revenue, but that for paying staff, but that's all.
Ah, okay, that's a really good point, Abigail. We'll look into that and find out, because I think that the guidance that we'd found had said Companies House and Charity Commission were the two main things, but we'll have a look and see where else we would be able to check for that.
I've made a note to ask that. I need to get in touch with our funding officer anyway today, so I will definitely raise that question at the same time. But I just remember from the PIV, it was one of the things they were expecting, but obviously if we can use information from the Inland Revenue instead, I don't see why that would be a problem, but it's definitely worth asking.
Emma, can I just ask a question about the districts?
Yeah.
You know, where you've got companies that perhaps, like for example, are from Hull, yet services are delivered in East Riding, not necessarily having a physical office in East Riding, but services are delivered in East Riding. Would that be okay for ticking the East Riding box?
It's a really difficult one, because how would we evidence it, if you know what I mean? So in terms of having a physical base, my guess is support would be taking place at their organisation rather than at Cottingham with you guys. So all that would do is would put the delivery postcode into Hull, which would then not be able to count in our figures. So
So if we provided support for that SME in our East Riding offices, that would be fine, is that?
I think there has to be a clear benefit to East Riding or to the district. So there like Sam said, there has to be delivery in that area. It might be that we can trial it and we can use the additional notes section a little bit later on to say head office is in Hull, but service delivery covers all of these places in East Riding, which is why you're engaging with them. I can ask a question, but it was our understanding that certainly for the SME provision, it had to be in the district. So, but I can definitely ask the question.
We get it quite a bit, I think, you know, with it's the border, isn't it? It's such a, you know, fine border between East Riding and indeed Selby, you know, yeah. So it's one for clarification. And in fact, if we did get anybody, Emma, we'd come straight to you anyway, just to check, you know, that it was going to be eligible.
Ideally, because the numbers for this part of the project are so low across the board, we would ideally want to give priority to organisations that are sort of primarily based in these areas. There isn't an exact replica of this project, but there are ESF projects that are based in Hull that have got kind of Hull targets and things like that. But I think, like Emma says, where we can really demonstrate that there is a strong benefit and a significant delivery presence in East Riding, I would be happy for you to tick the East Riding box and to put it in the additional information, you know, just some information that really explains how it is benefiting the East Riding area.
Okay.
Lovely. Cool. So on to sort of section 3, sort of trying to capture what the person you're engaging with knows about their workforce. So I suppose the project is built around inclusion and diversity, and this is a real opportunity to capture sort of the landscape of their workforces and actually if they know of colleagues and employees within their workforce that do have a disability or health condition, are neurodiverse, experience mental health challenges, are ex-offenders, anything that would contribute to you having sort of an inclusive and diverse workforce. And actually it's a really good question prompt. So if they don't know, should they know? And if they don't know, does that then mean that they don't know how to support those individuals sort of in the workplace? Our favourite additional notes and information box. Again, this is sort of what Sam was sort of mentioning there, Kirsty. If you did have an organisation that was based in Hull but had a really big presence in East Riding, you could use this box to kind of justify why you were engaging with them, which I think that would be fine, but I will definitely double check with our funding officer. Section 5 is statement of de minimis aid. So like Sam had said, because this is a European funded project, state aid does apply. It only applies for us engaging with SMEs, so it won't be hugely onerous. This is just where businesses and organisations would declare if they had received any state aid before. It is unlikely that they have. If they have, they will know, because they would have the same sort of letter templates from previous contracts that we will be supplying on this one. So if they don't know, it's highly likely that they haven't. If they have, they will have the formal notification, and they'll be able to provide that for you. We do have to make sure it is converted into euros, obviously because it's a European contract. And then just the declarations. So we've got that they are allowed and they're authorised to sign the form, that the information provided is true, that they're an SME, that they understand about de minimis, and that they know that Thriving at Work is part of the European Social Fund. So all the usual declarations, with the addition of the declaration about de minimis. And then obviously a declaration for us as delivery partners, just sort of the usual, have you let the organisation know that they are subject to state aid? Have you checked the company's house? I've made that first one up, that it's part of the European Social Fund, and that the information is sort of accurate to the best of your knowledge. So in a nutshell, that is the start paperwork. It's relatively straightforward. There is no evidence really to collect in addition to this, like there is with other strands. Like with all of our paperwork, sort of every field needs to be completed where there's an option to complete a field. But that, in a nutshell, is sort of the start paperwork. In terms of the diagnostic, so we've spent quite a lot of time looking at what provision under this sort of inclusive workplace umbrella might look like, and what is it that we're trying to achieve. So ultimately it is about helping organisations to become more inclusive and more diverse, and sort of we can do that in a number of different ways. So this diagnostic has been split into 6 sections, which will help us identify where we can support organisations and the type of support that they need. So section 1 is policies and procedure. So that's very much about, do they have all the basic policies? Are staff informed of changes? What types of policies do they have that promote inclusion and diversity in the workplace? And sort of so on and so forth. I don't think people particularly need me to read through all the points, like it's quite a lengthy diagnostic.
It might be worth just pausing on each section and giving people the chance to have a read of them themselves, because this is the section where I'm really keen, if you guys feel like we've missed something that's really important, that we can make any amendments to these. The structure for the diagnostics is that there's a start diagnostic where organisations will be rating themselves from 1 to 5 across a number of different areas, and then the same diagnostic will be repeated again at the end of the project, and that will really show that distance travelled. The diagnostics will also be used to inform the goals and the action plan that will inform the activities for the project. So I'll stop speaking and let you read the policies and procedures section. There is a little bit of an overlap between the different sections with things that, you know, might be about organisational practice, they might be about policies. So probably the best thing would be, if you think there might be something missing, if you jot that down, and then when we've been through all of the sections of the diagnostic, we can check if they've been covered elsewhere. If you feel like there's anything that's been worded in a way that's not clear, or that you think might be a barrier for people completing the question or anything like that, we'll take the feedback on that as we go through section by section.
Just on point 1.5, I think there's 2 parts to that. So the company might have clear and supported return to work process, but they might not do a wellness action plan or similar. So what if they kind of do feel that they've got a clear and supportive return to work process, but they're a very small company and it's kind of more informal as opposed to on a wellness action plan? It's almost like two questions in one, isn't it?
I think a lot of it is about how they rate themselves. So they might not have the action plan, so they maybe couldn't score themselves 5 out of 5, but they have enough of a supportive sort of a system in place that might score them a 4 out of 5, and it might be that one of their takeaways from that first section is, do they go away and have a look to see if they would need to introduce a wellness action plan? Nothing may come of it, but it might just be something to consider, or be a talking point for later on.
So it might be that last bit, instead of saying including, is something more in brackets saying which could include.
Yeah.
Just that specific.
And actually maybe even to say which could include wellness action plan if appropriate, because I know certainly lots of absence that we would have, it wouldn't be required, but obviously if the absence was specifically mental health related, or then that's where we would use the wellness action plan.
Yeah.
You get to see how bad I can spell now if really concentrate. Has everybody finished section 1, policies and procedures? Lovely. So section 2 moves into recruitment and induction, and I'll let you read these 2 points before I move into that, sort of the ones underneath. Is everybody ready for me to move it down?
Just on the recruiting one, kind of linked to the candidates offer the opportunity to disclose. One of the things I've come across is that that's then disconnected from the onboarding. So people disclose and you fill out a medical form and that medical form gets filed. So maybe we need a point in there around information disclosed on medical forms is carefully handed over to management. Do you know something around that? It's actually passed on to management and appropriate supports put in place.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll have a look at that afterwards rather than trying to fill that in now, but we will have that. That's great.
Because quite a lot of people do have a medical form, but it's what they do with that medical form that's important. And there have been a lot of companies that have gone, well, how does that get to managers? And they've gone, don't know.
Yeah, because it's often seen as, oh, well, this is confidential, so we don't tell anybody about it. But then people who need to know don't know.
Yeah. People get confused with that confidentiality in terms of it's a confidential disclosure, but the manager needs to know. So I think it's important we cover that on this checklist.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thanks, Suzanne.
I've written that down. Lovely. Everybody remember to, is everybody ready to move on to the culture and values section? Lovely. Does anybody have any queries about that section? I'm trying to read people's faces to see if you've finished reading or not, so it's quite hard. No questions? Lovely. I'll move on to section 4. So this is the staff and skills training.
I don't think we've ever had anything recorded that has this much silence in it. We'll have to get Simon to put some like lift music in the background.
Nice thinking music. And then move on to section 5, which is about reasonable adjustments and support. And then this is kind of the last section, I think, of the diagnostic really, is trying to look at which quality standards and pledges organisations have signed up to. So yeah, there's 6. Obviously there are others potentially.
Just on that one, Emma, it'd be good to break up the committed employer or leader, because then we can later on show if we've moved them from one stage to the next as part of this programme.
I had that originally split up, Suzanne, and then I was thinking people who we need to have a look at how we do it with the scores, because otherwise if somebody was like a leader, it's almost like you have to then automatically get the 2 above it as well. So we just have to make it so that he didn't like go against it, but I think that's a really good point. We could definitely
it's just about monitoring. I do think I mean, one of the ways we're selling part of this is that we can support people to become disability confident and move them across, so we kind of need to track that as part of this as well if we have moved them.
Yeah.
And then just because we like a summary, just to add it up, one of the things we will be looking at is sort of distance travelled. So obviously it's a similar diagnostic that mirrors the one that they've done now at the end of the project. So it's not necessarily about fixing everything, it's about maybe trying to move people along their journey to be more inclusive and diverse. So the total for all sections will help us to measure how far that organisation has travelled. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but it does mean that they're on their way to be more inclusive and more diverse.
Just before we move on to the next section, I'd be really keen to get people's feedback on this diagnostic, because this is new. We have created this specifically for this project, and we've done a lot of research that's gone into and quite a lot of editing, where we've had it much longer, we've had it kind of shorter. We wanted to make sure that it felt like it was really comprehensive. It really did act as a diagnostic. It was taking in all the different elements of inclusive practice, but also in a way where hopefully it will feel like it's quite an empowering process. I know even just in doing the research for this, Emma and I have been discussing, we've learned loads of things that we were like, we don't do that, we need to implement that's something to do that. But I'd be really interested just to get anybody who wants to share any kind of feedback on how the whole thing feels. Does it feel like it's about the right length? Is it covering most of the main areas that you would expect to see? Do you feel comfortable going through this with an organisation? So anybody who wants to just comment on that, it would be really good to get your feedback as the people who'll be filling this in.
I suppose as we're going along, we'll kind of know, won't we, whether it's what works or what doesn't work, and if any bits need adding or, do you know what I mean, or changing. So as it is at the moment, it looks fine, it looks good, and go with it.
Fabulous, thank you.
I think it looks comprehensive, and it does seem to cover all of the areas, and it certainly gives food for thought for an organisation in terms of, as you said, Sam, you know, it made you think about your organisation. So I think that's part of it as well, isn't it? It's sort of making organisations think about, well, what can we do? How do we do it? And that's where our support comes in as to the how, but at least it gives them that initial food for thought. And I think going through this certainly does that. It certainly will make them think.
Brilliant, thank you, Yvonne. Luke?
I was just going to say, when I saw that it was page 7 of 20, I thought, well, this diagnostic is going to be way too long. But no, it feels about right. How long it is, yeah.
It's the whole process from the moment they sign up to the moment they leave the project, so don't worry, it's not 20 pages of us just asking the questions at the start.
Yeah, it's like, it's going to be a 5-hour diagnostic. Get comfy.
I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a massive sort of admin fan, so as sort of concise as we could get it, it's sort of right up my street, because we'll be doing 100% check of all the paperwork that comes in. So fit for purpose is perfect, not too long, also perfect for me. So
yeah,
it's the same as those two. Lovely. And then from the diagnostic, it was really just to pick out 3 goals or priority areas. It might be, it could be anything. It could be something that's quite quick to fix. It could be something that might need a little bit more support. But it's sort of 3 main areas, 3 main things from that diagnostic that an employer thinks, actually, I could prioritise these now, or I want to look into like making a change. We're only asking for 3. It might be that there's more stuff that employers want to work with you with, and that is absolutely fine. But I think in the first instance, setting 3 main goals, I think, is sufficient. In terms of suitability for the project, obviously anybody that's scoring 180 out of 180 would not be suitable to receive the Thriving at Work sort of support from you guys. We've set kind of a benchmark figure of 120. We don't think we would score 120 as we've gone through the questions. So anybody scoring around that number or under, we kind of feel would be suitable for some support to help move them forward. I don't know how people feel about that score. If you think it's reasonable, if you think it's too low or it's too high.
If you've done a little bit of quick maths, it's 2/3.
I think that's pretty reasonable, because otherwise what are you going to do with them? I think as a team we'd be struggling to know what we could do if they scored higher than that.
Lovely. So that in a nutshell is the entry paperwork. So how sort of the sign on, the diagnostic and the goal settings section. It's probably going to be I'll call it the beastiest section to complete, because that's where you start building relationships and getting to know your employer. From that point forward, we then move into sort of the mentoring and the support for the project. You'll be pleased to know that this section is very simple. It doesn't require a lot of filling in. The idea is that it's not supposed to be onerous for employers, and it's certainly not supposed to be onerous for you guys either. We're calling it sort of mentoring and review, but it really is a record of contact, and that could be anything from an in-person meeting to a phone call to email correspondence. It could be some research that you do on behalf of the employer and then you share your findings. It could be a video call. It doesn't have to be one-to-one, sit round a table and sort of thresh out sort of you need to do this, you need to do that. It's very much about the contact that you have with the employer. And hopefully the form part that we've designed kind of reflects that. So obviously they're your goals again.
So that one, just then before you go past that one, that's to actually start doing some specific actions. Now, it might be that you do this kind of hot on the heels of doing the goals, but we've kind of included it in the monitoring section because it's going to be sort of where the monitoring touchstones are. But again, this is just for you to sort of be able to have that conversation, to guide the conversation around looking at some more specific actions that each of you will be doing, and then sort of a little bit of a kind of target date, and whether it's you guys that will be doing those actions or whether they're actions that the organisation will be going off and doing themselves.
And then I'll scroll onto a whole one. Oh.
Emma's been typing in this form and she's absolutely ruined the formatting of this, so I will go back through and fix that before we send it out.
Yeah, I'll apologise. I'll apologise officially because this is being recorded. I'm sorry for ruining your form, Sam. So each contact has this sort of size box to complete. So it's each contact, where it's like I said, whether it's phone call, whether it's email correspondence. We're very keen to kind of capture the type of support organisations need. I think some people, whilst they would benefit from some one-to-one support, time constraints, work constraints might mean that you can't do that all the time, and actually a phone call here and there or some email correspondence actually may be more beneficial in the short term, as opposed to trying to schedule in sort of regular one-to-one in-person meetings. You'll also notice that we're not capturing signatures for this section. Again, we are trying to reduce the amount of sort of admin employers have to do and how much admin you guys have to do. You know, everybody's busy people, so we want to try and keep it as straightforward and as efficient as possible. Does anybody have any questions about this? We envisage an average of 6 contacts. Minimum. It's a minimum of 6 contacts, but like I said, these can be in person, phone, email, just so we can see some sort of distance travelled between where organisations start and hopefully where they finished at the end of the support. So, try not to make everybody seasick as I scroll through all of these. Obviously, once we have finished that support, organisations are ready to exit the project. The exit starts again with that diagnostic that you completed at the start. It is word for word what it was. Well, it's not now because obviously I made some changes previously, but it will be word for word. What was done at the start will then be done again at the end. So I will whiz through this so you don't have to read it all again. So if you feel seasick, look away now. And then sort of this section here is really to try and show distance travelled in each of the sections. And obviously a review of the goals. In terms of what does a result look like, obviously we have some guidance from ESF, but in terms of what our offer is, Sam and I discussed this morning, it's meeting a minimum of one of the goals that you set at the start. Obviously not all of them have to be completed, some of them might be huge, and it would be unreasonable to complete them in that time, but to have at least one goal that has been completed. To have a substantive change in the scores from the diagnostic, so from the start diagnostic to the end diagnostic, we've sort of said a 10% change in scores overall. That would show some distance travelled, or quite significant distance travelled potentially, from the support that they've received through Thriving at Work. And then we move into the exit paperwork. So there's an actual results sections. Now these are lifted straight from the ESF guidance, and a lot are around skills. And then there's a caveat that basically says, and anything else that you wrote in your application form. So any single tick in any of these boxes would also count as a result on the back of receiving Thriving at Work support. So it has been structured in a way, I'm not going to say that it's easy to get a result, because I don't think anything working with people and supporting organisations is easy, but we've tried to create different avenues and different ways for results to be achieved, so that we can really celebrate the benefits of the Thriving at Work project. And then we follow up again, you'll recognise some of these sections from the entry paperwork. We're going to ask questions about their workforce again. So on the back of our support, do people now know more about their workforce? You know, have they gone away and found out, have they used that medical questionnaire that people submit at the start to really learn about their workforce and sort of really start to put things in place to help support people in a better way? And then we've got our old favourite evaluation. Again, this doesn't have to be War and Peace, but it'd be really helpful to us to capture sort of what improvements have been made, skills and knowledge have been gained, if there's any improvements that they can suggest for us, and then just generally if they have any other comments. And then there is the declarations box, which again is just like tick and sign. We did mention that there is a follow-up letter for state aid, and that is the letter that basically says, thank you for being part of Thriving at Work, you've received £1,000 worth of state aid, please keep this for your records for any future support you may receive. Again, it's all in template form, it's very, very easy to do. You literally just have to drop in the name of the organisation and I think the address, but the fields are sort of highlighted where you need to make the amendments, and that in a nutshell is the inclusive workplace paperwork. Does anybody have any sort of glaring questions, concerns, queries, celebrations that they might have that they want to raise now before we have sort of a 5-minute comfort break?
So, summary and next steps. We are going to have a look, we'll probably do it straight away actually on this call at the couple of bits, Suzanne, that you'd mentioned from the diagnostic, and just get those switched over and changed. We will be putting together that sort of like 2-pager that includes the process and then the specific bits of guidance about, you know, things like the minimum level that people the maximum level that people could score to be considered to be eligible, and then also the what counts as getting a result. So we'll make sure that all of that's super clear and you've got all of that. We will be sending out then that 2-pager document and the full pack of paperwork. Do you guys want all of that to be sent individually as well? Like, do you want one that's just the start paperwork, one that's the progress, one that's the end? We are perfectly happy to sort of separate that up if that would be useful. Speak now if you think it would be useful, otherwise we won't do it.
It's a yes from Yvonne.
It's a yes from Yvonne. Okay, Yvonne, we will do it for you and we will send it to everybody else as well. That's cool. Other things that we're going to be doing actually, so hopefully all of you guys have had a look at our new website, and you will see on the Thriving at Work section that the one-to-one support is already launched, and that we were saying that this one is coming soon. Now, we'd actually said September, but I think everyone's ready pretty much, and we are ready to start taking referrals. What we will do, so that any interest that comes via us and via our marketing, we'll put a form on there to collect people's contact details, where they're based, so that we can match them, but we'll then pass them straight on to you guys if you're the most appropriate person. So there might be a little bit of lead generation that comes from us, and we'll sort of pass that on to you, but you guys are now sort of free to start advertising this service and this strand of the project. We will aim to, I think we should be able to send the paperwork today. So that then is kind of live, and we'll update it on our website. So the people coming onto our website will see that. We are probably just about too late. We've got a newsletter going out tomorrow, but we have another one in a fortnight's time. And I'm planning to actually do a kind of Thriving at Work theme for the one in 2 weeks time, where we'll hopefully have maybe even some of the webinars already in place, and maybe a little bit of the training, and then a big kind of focus. And we'll do a sort of launch article for this strand of the project that talks a little bit about what we're going to be offering and how we're going to be able to support organisations. So that will go primarily to voluntary sector people, but we also have a couple of business people up on that mailing list as well. If you would like any support with like marketing and marketing resources and stuff like that, we do have a full-time marketing manager who understands all the ESF nuances and has design software and different things like that. So you can get in touch with Emma initially. So if you're wanting flyers putting together or little promo things, we can do videos and stuff like that. So whatever you guys need that will help you with the marketing of this project, we can provide some skills and expertise and capacity with that. And we have Abigail's question that I'd also written down about finding out, is there a way that we can get an eligibility check for an SME that's not registered at Companies House or the Charity Commission? That might take us a little bit more time just to get the answer back on that, Abigail. So if you have got other organisations that are registered with Companies House, probably work with them and sort of target it at them initially, but we'll try and get an answer back and we'll circulate it to everybody as soon as we have that. Okay, Emma, have I missed any next steps?
No, I don't think you have. Anybody got any sort of burning questions or comments, remarks that you want to make before we let you have a little bit of time back, which is always a little win, isn't it, when you get a bit of time back?
I was just going to say, I did check out your guys' new website. It looks very good.
Thank you.
But I noticed when it was your consortium, you had some of the posters for this program and for the others, and those aren't on there at the moment, the PDFs. So are you reworking those and putting those up, or have you taken those off completely?
Yeah, we're reworking them and we're putting those up. There's a couple of bits actually when we looked at them because they were quite generalist, and as we're getting more specific on the project, we think that we can improve them a little bit. So we will get those back up, but that's a really good point.
Okay.
Are we going to get together again, like in a month or so, and have a chat about it again and see how we're all getting on, see how things are going?
Yeah, absolutely. When we had the very first launch, actually, where it was the whole partnership of all of the different strands, that had come up that people had said they'd be really interested in us having a sort of regular meet. I think there could be benefits in us having the full project team, and then we're like linking the two different strands of the project. So we might try and avoid August just because of holidays and different things like that, but maybe sort of get something in for sort of first or second week in September, if that's good for everyone.
Yep.
Cool. I'm sure Emma's writing that down, but I'll put that.
I've written it down, yeah.
Oh, and we will have all sorts of different things to update on then as well. So that will be exciting. We've already got individuals signed up on the project now, and sort of more coming through all the time, and it's starting to feel like it's really happening, which is brilliant. Excellent. Any last opportunity for questions? Otherwise, we will be letting you guys go. Okay, fab. Thank you so much for your time today and for your contributions. It's been great to meet you, Charlotte and Luke. I don't think that we have met before, so welcome to the team. And yeah, if we want to be as accessible as possible, so if there's anything where kind of after the fact you're thinking, oh, I wish I'd asked this, or I'm not quite sure about this, or once you start doing it, it feels like it, you know, you've got any more questions, get in touch with Emma in the first instance, and if Emma's not around, then feel free to get in touch with me. But yeah, good luck with everything, and we look forward to seeing you again in September.